Yo, it's Backhand Class back with another video. I might be last on the train, but all of my homies, they always told me, like, yeah, I like boxing, but I started to like UFC more. And now I'm starting to understand why. Because last night you had Canelo versus Berlanga, but you also had Sean O'Malley versus, I don't even know how to say that dude's name, so I'm not even going to butcher it. But you had Sean O'Malley fight last night, and he lost. I mean, Sean O'Malley is not as decorated as Canelo Alvarez. It would be more like if John Jones fought. That would be like equivalent to Canelo Alvarez. And I know some people say John Jones is the GOAT, but I mean, he's not everybody's GOAT, but he is one of UFC's GOATs. I don't know if you could say that about Canelo Alvarez. Is Canelo one of boxing's GOATs? But he's definitely the GOAT of his era after Floyd Mayweather, who's better than Canelo Alvarez as far as legacy, resume, accomplishments. Um, but boxing has a lot of cherry picks. Yes, the form, the fighting style and the technique and that stuff is entertaining. And boxing has a lot of stars, and it's a bigger sport commercially. But the UFC is more competitive. I mean, you got Iggy. He was. I mean, he is he even relevant anymore? Like as far as like if he goes and fights, people are gonna watch it. But like he's not building a legacy no more. Iggy is done as far as legacy building, just like Conor McGregor is done as far as legacy building. Sean O'Malley, he lost one time right now. Do if he loses again or if he loses in the next like three fights, then you're probably gonna stop talking about him as the next big thing. But losing in UFC is not frowned upon like that. Like Sean O'Malley lost last night, but it only makes me look at UFC and think, damn, UFC is really legit. It's really competitive. Canelo Alvarez winning last night is like everybody saying, oh, David Benavidez would have murked Canelo. And then you also got to think about it. Like, yeah, Canelo, you said if Bevo wins, you will fight him at 175. But Arthur Beterbiev, Bevo ain't winning, bro. Arthur Beterbiev is gonna beat Bevo, and Canelo don't have no chance against Arthur Beterbiev. And I don't hear anybody saying that. I know everybody keeps talking about David Benavidez, but David Benavidez has no chance against Arthur Beterbiev. Arthur Beterbiev is the best at 175, even if David Benavidez and Canelo Alvarez moves up to 175. But that's beyond the point. The point that I'm getting at right now is that boxing is not competitive. I mean, it can be competitive. I mean, you want it to be competitive, but when you've seen Ryan Garcia fight Devin Haney, I know Ryan Garcia, there's controversy, he might have been on steroids. But you also heard Dana White say that the steroids, like someone being on steroids, the advantage of someone being on steroids versus the size advantage, or was that Dana White or was that Joe Rogan? Well, someone said it. They said that the advantage of being on steroids isn't as great as having a 20-pound weight advantage. And when you look into boxing, Devin Haney, when he fought Regis Prograis, he had a 20-pound weight advantage. So are you really complaining about someone taking Austrian and low amounts of Austrian, and you guys being closer to weight, if not Devin Haney being the bigger fighter? Um, what advantage did Ryan Garcia really have? I don't think the advantage was that great, but when you seen the fight, it's like, all right, that wasn't a competitive fight. It was a one-sided fight. But then when you seen Tank versus Ryan, that wasn't really that competitive of a fight either. But then they say, oh, rehydration clause. But when you go to UFC, you don't hear any of this. You don't hear people talking about rehydration clause. Oh, yeah, John Jones was on. He got busted with using performance enhancing drugs a few times. So maybe. Um, but his opponents were using performance enhancing drugs because one of his opponents said that he was using it while he was fighting John Jones. Um, But regardless of performance enhancing drugs or not, the UFC tends to have more competitive fights. Their stars tend to last a lot, have a lot shorter lifespan than boxing. Boxing, you can go your whole career without losing, and a lot of people can go their whole career without losing. And I just think that boxing likes to keep that zero because, yeah, they say Floyd Mayweather, he's the blueprint. Floyd Mayweather made all this money. And before Floyd Mayweather, I don't think it was that many boxers who held their zero for so long. But regardless, when you're looking at UFC compared to boxing, as far as competitiveness and how much more heart you have to have, because you have to know in UFC, I'm gonna be fighting the best of the best in UFC. And boxing, you're like, all right, I can cherry pick, I can duck, I don't have to fight this guy. I can wait till he's old. There's so many ways you can avoid a fight that doesn't really match up for you best. I'm still going to be a boxing fan. I'm not saying that I'm switching over to UFC, but UFC is giving me more not validation, but more respect. I got more respect for UFC, and who knows, maybe one day they might have a star that I really like, because I'm a star type guy. That's the reason why I don't really watch football and I watch basketball over football, because football is not star driven, it's team driven. You can't really win off of one player. But yeah, they have stars in football like wide receivers and quarterbacks, but I mean, that don't do nothing for me. I like to watch the NBA because you got players like LeBron and Giannis and now Victor Wembanyama that can turn over a whole game, and you are a fan of them, so you watch their games. Like, I'm not a fan of a sports team. I don't care if the Chargers win the Super Bowl, if the Clippers win the finals, and the Yankees win the world or whatever. I don't even watch baseball, but I don't care about teams. Like the players, yeah, I like to watch their journey. A lot of these basketball players, you can see them in AAU, and you can see them in college, and then you see them in the NBA, and then you get to see them match up against some of your favorite players. Like LeBron's playing against people that he played against their dads. And I know I'm going and touching a lot of topics. The topic of this video is the UFC game I respect. And boxing, I mean, you're starting to show that you're not really you're not really about competition. You're more about how much money we can make, how good can we show that this fighter is, like Canelo or Tank Davis or even Terrence Crawford. But then you see, like, if you go to the UFC, most of those guys, they don't last that long at the top because someone's coming for that crown. And it's just all about who's more hungry and who's more prepared and what styles benefit each fight. Because each fighter doesn't, just because I go and I beat you or you go and you beat me, doesn't mean you can beat everybody that I beat. Like, that's the thing about fighting, is like every fight is different. Every fighter has strengths over another fighter, and every fighter has weaknesses over another fighter. So when you match two people up, the outcome is always going to be different. It's not just like, oh, I'm better than every single person. There's always someone out there that's probably has the opportunity to beat you. And that's why I think boxing is so like it's so like many people cherry picking, because they're looking at what style is best for me to fight. Who's the type of person can I be? And then a lot of people in boxing, they know they're gonna lose. They know I'm gonna step in this ring and I'm gonna lose tonight, but I'm still gonna go on a press conference and act like I'm gonna win and act like it's a competitive fight. And then when you get into the ring, it's like, we all predicted this. UFC is less prediction, and you can get upset really, really fast. So with all that being said, I'm just letting you guys know that UFC is definitely more competitive than boxing, and UFC definitely cares more about giving the fans what they want, and boxing is more based off of how much money we can generate and how could we prop up this star to make him look better than every other star in his division. Boxing, you low key need to step up your game. In UFC, you're on the right path. I respect Dana White because I'm pretty sure he's the one that chooses majority of the fights. Um, but with all that being said, Sean O'Malley, I'm looking forward to see your next fight.